Do you know what awakening means and how can you awaken? My name is Dr. Barbara Kleeb and this is the Polymath Perception Podcast. In this episode, I'm meeting Jim Welsh, who is a multi-talented polymathic entrepreneur who is doing esoteric writing on LinkedIn. Jim shares his story of awakening in this podcast and helps others to find out how to do that as well. If you are interested in many things, and not just superficially, but really deeply, and everything you learn, you see the context to other fields that you already know, if you have a deep curiosity, then you might be a polymath. Polymaths discover and integrate many things. Jim Welsh made the journey from polymath to being whatever you call it, enlightened, awakened. In this episode, you're seeing interesting stories, near-death experience, spiritual awakening, reframing, and deep realizations. I have been doing a lot of inner work, meditation, mindfulness, and courageous introspection as well. So it's a great conversation to have with Jim. Without what we're talking about, you might not have the clarity on what it means to be awakened, enlightened, and might not have a clear concept. Listen till the end. Then Jim Welsh will tell you how to lead a spiritual life.
It's such a joy meeting polymaths, playing music, writing books, painting pictures, creating, discovering the truth with open hands. In dark cellars of IT, polymaths relate and create, discover dimensions that have never been seen, innovate, invent. Multiple perspectives is their thing. They're visionaries for a better world, responsively related to the nature around and within. Once the curiosity of a polymath gets sparked, it's the beginning of a deep journey. They have lived many lives within one lifetime, and they share their insights generously. It's so wonderful to be interviewing polymaths. Welcome to the Polymath Perception Podcast. I'm here with Jim Welsh from Australia, and I'm delighted to see you here. Jim, could you please summarize your journey?
I live in Australia. I'm nearly 70 years old now. I've had a very wide and varied career and personal life. Now at 70, I can say they are one and the same thing. There should be no difference between our personal life and our career. I was born in Melbourne, in Victoria. It's in Australia, and brought up in quite a big family. My brothers and sisters, mum and dad, and they were immigrants from Scotland and Ireland. Yeah. So just a normal guy, normal young man finding his way. I studied accounting. So became a financial and cost control accountant with a big corporation called Kraft Foods. In that, I also studied into what was then called data processing, which is now morphed through to AI as we know it today.
Yeah.
So in that, I was a systems analyst and programmer, and was fortunate enough to do coding, which was in the dark old days, the punch card. So I did all of the different programming languages and all of the logic and systems, analyst of that, to integrate it. That led me into working in a footwear industry, where I successfully did some programming which took us from what we call a Kalamazoo, or a manual ledger entry system, which was writing checks in a book, through to a fully integrated online interactive computer system doing all of the accounting right through. That was the first introduction in Australia, actually, of barcode reading, which was a brand new thing then. My brothers had started a company in packaging, and they grabbed me and said, "You've got to work with us. Don't work with that anymore. You're our brother. Come on over." So that was a packaging returnable products, and we built that up into quite a big business, which was eventually sold to a bigger company. I then went off into another area of the family business, actually, in lighting. And that's where I found a new passion and became a lighting designer. But I was working in a new medium in lighting at that time, which is in the early 90s, called fibre optic lighting. So I was able to then find and build systems that we had to create from the ground up, and then applications. That took me actually to Europe, Asia, America, doing that business. So it was a lot of it was in entertainment industry, in cinemas, complexes, big shopping centres, and people like Warner Brothers, Village Roadshow.
Oh, interesting.
Fibre optics itself, or guiding light in the 1800s, was proven as a theory. So now a lot of our communications are fibre optics, which is just pulsing light down mainly glass fibre. But endoscopy, all that sort of stuff, is actually a way that we're sending light. So I was doing it along plastic polymer cables. You might remember those old light fountains and that sort of thing. I was doing it in a big commercial area, though, with lighting. I was lucky to personally win about 6 IES Awards of Excellence for lighting design. Sort of like an Academy Award in that area for luminaire design, which was the actual physical drivers or energy systems that we used to put the light through. So I was in the advent of uptake from what we call THT, or through-hole technology, in the NGAL LED, right through to chip on board. Part of that then became where we integrated it with the IIoT, the Industrial Internet of Things. So command and control interfaces in data. So I got pretty involved with that side of it as well. Later on, I was asked to intervene in some building and construction. So home building, basically. But I had quite good grounding in commercial building in the work that I was doing in the big projects. So I transposed some of the disciplines of commercial construction into residential construction. And we're pumping out what we call full turnkey homes. So it's a three bedroom, right down to the letterbox to walk into, and putting them together in 12 to 14 weeks, which was leading breakthrough in that area. Also then went off into a little bit into land development, with having a look at scoping up land, and then the integration of other technologies which become important now in the renewable energy systems. So with battery and PV, solar, wind, kinetic, and how we integrate that ubiquitously, and how that's going to become even more important as we move forward with energy conservation. So part of that was that I had a LinkedIn profile, and as being nearly 70 now, I've morphed it into my spiritual aspect of our existence. Apart from that, I was also a cowboy and a rancher and a fencer, and I've been truck driver, lots of other
Wonderful.
things.
So that is the grounding aspect that you also had. Was there like a pivotal moment that shifted you to more the spiritual side, or was it something that just happened continuously in your life?
Yeah, it was a bit of a continuous thing, in that my first real memory was my older brother holding me by the hand and walking through a barbed wire fence down to an area in a school where he wanted to blow something up with his crackers back then.
Yep.
And I remember him telling me, shh, quiet, we're creeping down here, and he lit the cracker, and I can remember the fuse going and putting it into this a little box, and something just clicked in me. It was like, wow, I'm more than this. I'm seeing and understanding and clicking in to, there's other dimensions to you, Jim. So that's sort of for a 4-year-old.
Interesting.
And then I guess from there, I always had been very, what I would say, empathic, that I would feel other people's pain or distress or worry or care or concerns. It was a lot for me to process as a little boy, the way that life can be a bit unconscious and demanding of us at times. So I was very sensitive in that area. But you're a man, you've got to be this, you've got to do that, you've got to come on, hearten up, and supposedly contributing to society. So I always had some awareness that, hey, Jim, it's only part of your aspect of what you are as a human being. So that was very early. I got married, I did the home birthing. So I delivered my own daughter. And that was a transcendent experience. Time stops. I've always been sensitive to those deeper dimensions of, wow, we're absorbed into this and we are that.
When a baby is born, it's like a magic moment.
It's a miracle.
Find. And the way it just looks at you and at the world, it still knows where it's coming from, and you can see that. And today, some parents want to use their iPhones and talk to their relatives in these magical hours. This moment you shouldn't miss.
It's a sacred thing. If humans were there witnessing, involved in a birth of a baby, it's something which will shift your awareness and your consciousness, and it will open your heart a little bit. You'll have some respect of, wow, we are a miracle walking, and the gift of that. And it's a very simple thing, and it's happening all the time. There's 8 billion of us now.
Yes.
But it's still a sacred experience. That was just one part of getting a little more of an awakening, so to speak. At other times when I've been stressed, I've had what we would call out-of-body experiences.
So how did those outer body experiences start? Now you can go to Spotify and you can listen to a podcast and you can school yourself to do that. But I think when it happened to you, it wasn't public knowledge.
The first real one was I was asleep. I could see myself floating above myself asleep. The next thing I know, I was flying through the ether, but to the edges of cliffs in an area which I know one day I will go and visit physically in this flesh, and it looked like Scotland. My ancestry is from Scotland.
Interesting.
And I saw little boys and girls playing there on the swings and slides by the side of the cliff. Now it was like, well, was that a lucid dream? Was it a thing? I knew that I was actually out of my body at that time because I could see my body on the bed when I came back. I've had many out-of-body experiences, usually when I've been under a fair bit of stress or I've created a bit of a drama or something's going on. That was in my earlier years. It was now, in retrospect, like life taking me out of that and saying, Jim, there's a beauty as well.
Oh, super.
There's another dimension to your existence. Another time was what we call an NDE, or near-death experience. I was fishing in the surf, directly into the surf. I went down this beach called Bells Beach. I wanted to target particular fish that I knew would be in there at that time. And then I waded out and put my bait exactly where I wanted it. And as I did that, a big wave hit me from behind. I'm being dragged into eternity. I'm dead. There was no coming back from that. And I gave up. I didn't see the life flash in front of me or anything like that. But I knew from earlier that you don't fight a rip, or you don't try to struggle in that. So all my waders and everything were full of water. Thought, well, that's going to drag me under for sure. But somehow, through a grace, I was washed up the beach about 100 metres further on in the dark. Some other side rip came through and pushed me back into shore. And I could feel the sand and I got out. And I sat there and cried for a good half an hour. Wow, you were lucky, Jim. can you wake up now? But I still didn't wake up fully at that stage. But I'll tell you what, Barbara, when I climbed up that cliff, all my gear was gone, my rods, everything. I was just happy to be alive. I climbed, and luckily I had my keys locked away in a little pouch and my wallet in the front of the waders, because these were full waders. And I struggled up that cliff to get back to the car park. And I drove and I was shaking.
Yeah.
And I drove to the a little town called Janjak and bought a pizza. And it was the best pizza I've ever eaten in my life. I've had a lot of those sort of what we call glimpses, satori's, or moments where you become absorbed into things at a different level to what you normally experience them as. Yeah.
It seems to
and
me like
eventually,
consciousness wanted you to be more conscious.
yeah, absolutely. That's what consciousness is, wanting us all to be more conscious all the time. That's why this world exists. That's what we'll get into. Yeah, that's what it's about. Is the world is coming at you to awaken you and to allow you to be more conscious. It's only us that are getting in the way of that. And the wonder and the beauty and the majesty and the mystery of that. I was still very unconscious human being, creating my own dramas and my own problems. And the world just got so, business, relationships, there's a lot of things going on that because of my empathy and necessarily creating them, I was experiencing them. And it was difficult for me to move in and out or toggle or have a perspective beyond that still.
So when you say wake up, what does that mean?
For me, it was to know that you're not just Jim. Now, I started to write poetry, and one of them is one I called it Not.
Yep.
You are not your house, your holiday, your car, or your career. Not even all the roles you play, or the sum of all your fear. These are objects, thoughts, and situations contained within the space of the truth of your existence, beyond religion, creed, or race. Now, I would never have been able to write something like that until I woke up. I decided that I was committing suicide. Quietly in the background, I'd said goodbye to all of my family and friends. They didn't know that, but I knew that. And I was resolving and making my own peace because I was out. I'd had enough of the pain, destruction, distress, whole shooting match of this existence here, that mess we're creating. And I said, I'm going. You have to get to a pretty bad state of non-coping or depression or loss to get to that stage.
Yeah.
And I driving my old car up the highway, and I knew the bridge and exactly where I was going to jump off. And as I was driving that car, I started to have an OBE, out-of-body experience. And it was like I was driving a video machine. And then the car started to shake, and the wheel vibrated, and the temperature went up, and the car basically lurched and pulled itself off the freeway to the left-hand side. And here's the funny thing. My first thought, excuse the language, but you're such a fuck up, Jim. You can't even kill yourself. Then I just blew up sitting in the car. But I was sent to all points of the universe at one integration. It was like I was a photon of light or a proton. And I could see and feel all of everything stitching me together and everything stitching everything else together. And this very deep, resonant voice said, Jim, that drama is not you. This is you. And I could never, ever go back in my consciousness from then on. It was just a snap, a shift. That was it. I could never, ever be that old Jim anymore. It was an opening to awareness. That's when the real job started of reintegrating into life. I had nothing then, no money, nothing. I was living in my brother's spare room because I just given up. I'd had my business and career stolen and taken away from me through me being naive and trusting people. I was in a low place. But the next day, on my old phone, I got a phone call from one of my old customers I hadn't heard of from years. He said, Jim, you're the only one who can help us. Can you come and do this? So within a week, I found myself back in work doing things.
Nice.
Yeah. So it was like I just understood what the grace of benevolence was beyond even all the machinations of what a Jim could ever create. And call it an awakening, an awareness, whatever you like. You can call me whatever you like. Don't call me late for dinner. That's all, It's a constant regrounding of that and a constant digging through old, unresolved and unidentified emotions and patterns that I constructed previously as me, which were all delusions and dramas and dysfunctions, actually. That's why I started the post, particularly when COVID came along and a few people suggested, Jim, look, it would be nice if you just did a photo and a poem and a bit of insight. I've done it every day since then because it helps me, Barbara. It's something in me that I'm expressing and allowing for myself, as well as if you read, someone else reads it and they get something from it, great. But I'm not looking for an outcome from it. I'm just using it as my natural expression of where I'm at in my own journey.
Funnily enough, when I first read your posts, I thought you were constantly drunk because you were so joyful and always posted the classes with cheers.
I'll post things that are confronting, confusing, concerning, might take you to an area that you don't want to maybe visit. But I always do my posts with, it's up to you. After my shift, I naturally start to write poetry. I've never written poetry in my life.
Nice.
But it was a way of reintegrating it for me and moving through these emotions as they came up for me. Deep romantic poems or something like that. They're just little things that I want to share about the nitty-gritty of our daily existence, but also the beauty of our daily existence and how we can keep a wider perspective. Let's not get trapped down in there, but what is our awareness? So that's why we're the space. We're not what happens ultimately. We're the space in which it happens.
Interesting.
That's the destination of you as a human being, actually, to go into that sentience, that sapience. It's actually very wise. And it's a way that you can then go, I don't have to be consumed by this at the moment. It's that little gap, that little piece of calm there, which you have always been. You've never not been that. It's not an intellectual thing. That's why I write it as poetry.
I need my daily dose of awe.
Yeah.
Going into nature, really looking at something to kind of like having a drink of beauty and all there is.
10 different people might see 10 different aspects.
Yeah.
And they're supposed to. But if one line or one image or one word can help them, wow, I am that. I intrinsically know I'm that. But I'm not getting out of my own way to go and discover that because I'm too busy. I'm too full of this. I'm too consumed by that. And that's the beauty of, I post a lot of, say, pictures with flowers and that sort of thing. I can't help that anymore. And those images appear for me and they talk to me and say, Jim, share that.
Yeah.
So if I wasn't sharing that, I'd be dishonoring that truth.
So they talk to you. Can you hear the flowers talking?
It's not that it's such an audible thing. It's a tangible thing.
Yeah, you sense it.
And it's saying, hey, have a look here. Look at this. Wow. Here's the intricacy and the beauty. And here's the story behind what it was. I think I posted one the other day of a little flower coming out of a brick wall.
Nice.
How did that get in there? How did that express itself? And it was a vibrant flower with plenty of leaves, but it was in the side of a brick wall. Right? But it told me about resilience. It told me about capability. It told me about we can do a lot with a little.
Yeah.
And it was there just expressing itself and giving its beautiful perfume off.
Once you told me a polymath has a long journey ahead or something like this, what did you mean by that?
I'm writing actually a bit deeply to this in the background, have been for a while. But our construction of what we come in and think we are as a human being. Now, a lot of it's genetic, a lot of it's cultural, a lot of it's ecological, the environment, what the stars were at that time, constellations, into traits that we have, which were areas that, say, Carl Jung started to go into personality types and structures that they were trying to give it to, hey, this is what a human is, but they're all structural things that the mind's trying to grasp. But they're also, there is truth in those areas. And our psychology or our psychopathy, above and beyond what we might think is psychiatry or psychology, is important. And that's what's the truth of our essence, of what we are at a deeper spiritual level. It's got nothing to do with religion. But what are my traits? What am I bringing to my interactions, the quality of my interactions? How am I treating life, and how is life treating me back? What are these situations that I'm encountering that are really there as signals and signs to me to come home more deeply? And what are those traits? So something that I guess I had to come to terms with and realise and understand was, in our Western society, what is the role of a consumer? What is the role of a citizen? What are we really investing into? What are our values and metrics that are important to us? Are we just slavishly caught into some sort of trap that only a few win, and at the same time we destroy our environment and we kill our biodiversity, and we're slowly just cutting our own throat as a species without even understanding or knowing or looking at that? Where are we being gamed that we're not aware of, but we think we're doing the right thing? I think I'm being a good contributor to society and a good citizen. Humans are basically unconscious. We work as unconscious beings, mainly.
Mm-hmm.
We think we're conscious. We think we have cognition. I'm aware, I'm awake. I can see this, I can do that. I'm talking about a completely different psychological aspect to our existence, beyond what a structural psychology might tell us of what we are. So that is where, as humans, we start treading the road to hell, thinking it's paved with good intentions. And every human being does it. It's the human condition. We're already creating the dramas that we're about to encounter, thinking we're doing the right thing. Probably we're not. When you do that en masse and you call it society, it's no wonder that we sit back and just accept that a few people will commit suicide, have issues and problems, or that it ends up in genocide, where innocent children are slaughtered and killed and murdered. For what? A slavish devotion to an old mythical religious story, fictitious lines on maps. And people go in to support that and help that and say, oh, well, I'm justified in doing that. They're evil, I'm not.
I sometimes think what I try to do myself is to create my peace and be in the moment and enjoy the situation I am in. But then sometimes I think, oh, maybe I should care more for what's happening on the world.
We retreat and insulate ourselves from the world. The world is out there. Yeah. Is how people say, oh, and they're all mad and they're all bad and they're all evil and this is what is happening and what can we do about it? Nothing.
everyone who is living, I don't know whether it's true, but it's just how I explain to myself. Everyone is creating like a whirl of energy that contributes to the big consciousness. So
Yeah.
I'm more into creating a good world for myself and all the people that I'm touching.
Yeah. And where does that journey start, Barbara? How do you bring that essence to the world? What's the key to doing that?
I create it in myself. I look at traumas, clear them, look at my thoughts that are not aligned with other people, and I think differently.
You introspect
Yes.
and you contemplate
Yeah.
and you take those things as signs from life directly to you through what you're creating as a guide or a path to say, is that working? Is that right? Am I at peace with that? Am I contributing a better essence
Yes.
to all of my relationships? And you know what? That's why you read my stuff. You're already creating and making a shift toward that.
Okay. Yeah.
Consciously.
Yes.
Not a lot of humans are doing that yet. They're too caught up with having to pay the bills and keep moving and consumed with this or that or all the baubles out there of doing what they want to do. So this is where you start to then move in out of what was unconscious to bringing it to more conscious. You're using and understanding that you are what is there to alchemize that consciousness level.
That I can't change anyone else but myself.
Absolutely. I had a thing the other day with people asking me some questions on non-duality, Buddhist, Zen, and I was quite frank about it. There's beauty in it. There's a deep truth beyond all of that. But the problem is that the Western intellect mind has commodified that, commercialized that. Oh, I can now say that I am aware, I'm awake, I meditate, I do all of these things, so I'm okay. I can clear my slate. I'm doing what I need to do. But they're missing the essence of the true deep aspect of that because they get cut off in the traffic or something happens or someone steals something or takes something or they don't get what they want. All that goes out the window. It was just show dressing because they've still got to come home. They've still got to come home sooner or later and deal with those deeper, darker aspects of themselves, those shadow aspects that they haven't really, truly, fully understood yet. Now, that's fine. Non-duality may be a pathway for that. But a lot of it is just, okay, well, it's glib. It's just, I can put that as a feather in my cap that I'm a good person because I do that.
So it's kind of an illusion.
A lot deeper than that. Absolutely.
Yeah,
in fact, it's a mass delusion.
Continuous work. And I think continuous inner work is necessary to have a better life and to be better for other people.
Yeah, I would call it
you're just radiating the shit you have inside.
Yeah, I would call it courageous introspection is what is required. I'll give you a little poem. I called it Attack, Defend. What do I attack? And what do I defend? Yes, these are things to look at, situations to contend. If I look with courage and strip it to the core, I usually will find old ego to the fore. But if I can detect this, accept it, and allow the universe, in deep respect, sends me back into the now, back to the furnace of alchemy, where it is all that I create persists. It gets burned out of my existence by the lack of what resists. So it's what is those resistances down there that we don't understand, that we haven't plumbed the depth of or had the courage to bring to the light of our awareness. Because if you do that, then you will grow more awareness. you will grow true consciousness, clearer consciousness, deeper understanding, more empathy, more kindness, more cooperation, more collaboration. That's what's required in the species now. Because if we don't wake up to that, it's going to get messy really quickly.
That was such a nice conversation, Jim. Thank you so much. And after a short moment, Jim will explain to us how we can come to a spiritual perspective of ourselves.
I hope you enjoyed this episode and the stories Jim told us from his near-death experience to the being a photon and having a total awakening as much as I did. It's great to learn from others, but it's not something you can just integrate in your own life. There are further steps, awarenesses, experiences needed. If you are interested in having more clarity and awareness in your own life, I'm happy to have a conversation with you. You can book a slot on my Calendly link and we have a half-an-hour conversation. Of course, you can do everything yourself, but it takes just much longer time. So go to the show note, look for the Calendly link, book a slot, and I'll see you soon.
Jim, can you please tell us how to come to a spiritual perspective of ourselves?
It's about knowing that you are more than the content of what you think is your life or your story of me. We create our story of me all the time in interactions, in our daily existence. But you are not just that story. You are the intelligence of the universe manifested as a human being, creating its story. And our story is actually a portal. Our dramas, our failures, our fears, our concerns, all of the baggage that we think is in the way is the way. The obstacle of me is the way. It's what I'm here to plumb and understand. And it's perfectly designed by me, for me, through me alone, no one else. So how am I going to now put a perspective into my daily existence? I'm going to develop the courage to look a little deeper, to see why I got angry, to see why I got upset, to see why I felt superior, to see why I thought I'm smart and you're not, I'm right and you're wrong. What are the cruxes in there? What is sitting behind that? What is driving that sort of thinking? And that works the reverse way. I'm not good enough. I'm not worthy. I'm a piece of crap. That's still a story.
Yeah.
Whether I'm the king of the world or the worst pauper or lost, it's still investing in a story of me. We've got to now see that we are the intelligent space of consciousness that story exists in, and remove ourselves once away from it and introspect to it and enjoy the beauty of existence. You'll get more spiritual growth or development or betterment for your daily existence by uncovering one delusion than you will attending 900 seminars or reading 1,000 books, because they might just be trapping you in deeper, because now you're adding it to your knowledge, you're adding it to this experience, you're adding it. Go and sit under a tree. Go and listen to the birds, the few birds we've got left at the moment anyway, and go and watch the sun come up and go down. Have that space. You are that space. Silently look truly at a flower, and that flower will talk to you. It's such a deep level that there's no intellect there. There's no you there anymore. That's who you are. When you wake up in the morning, before your first thought sometimes, before, today's Wednesday. I've got to go and do that. I've got to arrange. I've got to be. Oh, there's a slice of your existence before the first thought comes in. There's a beautiful little slice there, just as you're awakening in the morning. Find that little slice of no one there, and just a resolution of peace is who you truly are.
Thank you so much, Jim. Fantastic.